Good morning. Well, that's probably the most friendly interchange we'll have today. We're going to try and keep to time. I hope you'll enjoy it. If you don't, keep quiet, please. So you can see what the subject is. Fairly simple. Many people want to be creative and do this, that and the other, but most intelligent people would like to make some money. So if that's of any interest to you, perhaps I can help. Can you come and make this thing work, Chloe? Now you... She said, don't worry, call me up and I'll do it.
Hello, Carlos. I hope you don't mind if I call you Carlos. I can't pronounce your other name. Have you ever made a mistake? I'll tell you the worst mistake I ever made in business. It was many years ago, perhaps before you were born. A man came to see me and he said, I've been asked to find an advertising agency for a company who I represent. And I wonder if you would like the account. I said, what do they sell? What do they manufacture? What do they advertise? He said, office machinery. And I shook my head and I said, no, I don't advertise office machinery, things like that. I only do consumer accounts. He said, well, it's an interesting company. You could buy some of their stock for $2 or $3 a share. Well, I'd never heard of the company, so I said I wasn't interested in that. And I recommended a friend who'd just started another agency and was broke, and he came over and he got the account. Well, the account that I'd never heard of, that I refused that day, was called Xerox. Now perhaps I have a chance to undo that immortal error I made that day and go to work for you in Australia. Jeff Lindley has put together a really terrific team, I know them, to work for you, and I would like to help them. And if you hire us, if you and Tim would like to come over and visit me and spend 2 or 3 days with me in France, and bring on 2 people from our agency in Sydney, maybe we could get together and sit down
and it stopped.
And talk for a couple of days about the sort of job that you need to achieve your purpose. I hope you'll hire us, and I hope you'll come. You'll be very welcome. And then, at last, I can forget that awful mistake I made years ago. Never too late.
Why the hell did I put that up? Well, he made that video for me when we were pitching for the Xerox account. But the reason I put it up is that if you were actually to print that out, you would see it is a fantastic piece of copy. Yeah? It's a fantastic piece of copy. It's somebody talking to you. It's got everything in it. It's got surprises, it's got bags of charm. It's a terrific salesman at work. And really, the most important single thing I can say to you today probably is that it's just salesmanship. If it doesn't look like salesmanship, you're in trouble. We got the account. Now I think I have to go out of here again, do I, Chloe? I have a number of shortcomings, of which will reveal themselves as the day goes along. Number 1, I never recognise anybody's name or their face. Number 2, I'm a complete idiot with anything more complicated than putting clothes pegs on a clothesline, as I'm about to demonstrate. But I know a little bit about this subject. So this is what I'm going to try and do for you, if I can. If I can do all those things, will that be a good result for you? Because that's what I'm going to start by doing, and then after, I'm going to answer a lot of questions you've sent, but only the ones I know the answers to. And I'm not going to answer anyone who sort of said, I've got this little question, and basically it says, can you give me a complete marketing strategy in 5 minutes? I charge money for that. After lunch, I'm going to introduce a friend of mine who's going to talk to you about some of the secrets of writing copy that works. There's a guy I've worked with over the years. I'm going to introduce you to a few other friends of mine who you might find useful to meet. I'm going to make you work on your business together, and we're going to go around, my friends and I, trying to help you produce something that will help your business. And by the time we reach the end of the day, you'll wish you never came. Why the heck have I put that up? Because I saw it when I arrived from America a week ago, and I got off the plane at Heathrow, and that was the first thing I saw after I'd been through the rather appalling experience of immigration. So you're not feeling too good, are you? You've just gone through immigration, and I suddenly saw this poster, welcome, and it's from this guy who's a florist, yeah? And I looked at it and I thought, that's a perfect advertisement, yeah? It actually meets you at the right time and says the right thing, the thing that the advertiser wants to say. And what does the advertiser want to say? The advertiser wants to say, when you come to Britain, please spend lots of money. Please spend lots of money. And I know that if you're in a good mood, you're more likely to spend lots of money. If you think people are delighted to see you, you're more likely to spend more money. That's why it's a perfect little advertisement. Yeah? The perfect little advertisement is always something that says the right thing at the right time to the right people, bearing in mind how they are feeling at that time. Yeah? I often tell this story about the blind frog and the blind rabbit who were talking to each other one day and realised that because they were blind, they didn't know what kind of animals they were. And so they agreed that the best thing to do was to feel each other, which they proceeded to do. And first of all, the frog felt the rabbit, and he sort of went, oh, when I was younger and more excitable, I used to get a lovely lady up front to do this with, but I've been turned down so many times I've given up. You've got lovely furry skin and long floppy. Oh, hang on a second, you've got a little furry tail. You must be a rabbit. And the rabbit says, yeah, I'm a rabbit, I'm a bunny rabbit. Great, let's feel you and see what you are. He goes, ooh, you've got horrible slimy skin. Big staring eyes, and a rather cruel grinning mouth. And let's feel the rest of you. Ooh, you've got grasping claws. You must be an estate agent. This is from a book called Roy Brooks' Brothel in Pimlico. It's an estate agent who died many years ago who used to run advertisements in the 1960s with a secret recipe. Filthy old house, fashionable Chelsea, preserved as of architectural interest, God knows why. Providing you have enough patience and cash, we make 3 bedrooms, 27-foot L drawing room, a dining room, 1 or 2 bathrooms, kitchen. The horrible patch of weed, refuse-infected earth behind it would make a lovely garden, maybe. Darkest Pimlico, seedy family house, 2 rooms in basement, ground, 1st and 2nd floors, an attic room on 3rd. Decor, peeling, faded and fly-blown. Garden, good for Westminster, all of 20 feet. So on. If you're too late to secure this gem, we have a spare along the road, rather more derelict. A lightly built member of our staff negotiated the basement stair, but our Mr. Halstead went crashing through. Why did that sort of thing create such a sensation? Because the one thing we all know about estate agents is they're lying bastards. Yeah? And so it's a huge surprise. An honest estate agent. Yeah? So I've shown you a couple of things which are a little bit surprising. Yeah? David Ogilvy admits I made this terrible mistake all those years ago. And funnily enough, I worked for the agency that got the Xerox account long before I worked for David Ogilvy. This is a complete surprise, an honest estate agent. And you come through immigration and suddenly you see this big picture of a man with a bunch of flowers pointing in your direction. They're all surprising. Yeah? So what I'm trying to do today is tell you all the things you really need to know to write good copy or to improve the copy that you write already. And many of the things I'm going to say are things you will hear other people say, and maybe say them better. But I have 3 secret weapons I would like to talk to you about. In addition, because I would like to help you rise above the competent and achieve the remarkable. Honesty. Charlie Brower, who ran the agency Batten, Barton, Durston and Osborne, BBD&O, whose name was described by the comedian W.C. Fields as sounding like a man dragging a heavy trunk downstairs. When he died, they ran an obituary of him in the New York Times, which I read. He was a very funny man, and he said, "Honesty is not only the best policy, it is rare enough nowadays to make you pleasantly conspicuous." Charm. We like to do business with people we like. Ogilvy was, and he told me himself, he said, everyone thinks I was a great copywriter or this, that and the other. He said, what I was really good at was selling. Because he had oodles of charm. Yeah? And most of the copy that you see has no charm whatsoever. It's written by dead people, as far as one can make out, sitting in committee somewhere in a toilet in Westminster. And the third is surprise. So those are the 3 elements which are calculated to make your copy rise above the ordinary to the extraordinary and get you extraordinary results. And by the way, you might like to know that, as you can see, all this is being filmed. You'll all get a copy of the video. So only write down things, if I say something really, really important, which is most unlikely, because you'll be able to see it all over again if you are of a somewhat masochistic frame of mind. The first thing that most writers seem to be unaware of is that good writing starts with good reading. And an awful lot of people in marketing spend their time and money buying and reading incredibly dull books about marketing. I advise you to avoid most of these. They're usually badly written. They usually render the simple very complicated. And if all you ever read about is marketing, you'll become unspeakably dull to yourself, members of your family, and anybody you happen to meet. And if you ever make enough money to retire, you'll have nothing to think about because all you've thought about all your life is marketing. How bloody dull is that? Yeah. So read good writers, not just people who write about marketing, but people who write very well. Read these sort of writers. I don't know if any of you like crime writing, but Elmore Leonard really is extraordinarily good. Chandler and people like that, very, very good, because they write very, very simply, make things very, very easy to read. David Ogilvy I just showed. If you haven't read Ogilvy on Advertising, then you really should. It's very, very good indeed, and it's very, very well written. My former colleagues at Ogilvy and Mather, the chairman, Ken Roman, they wrote a very good book called Writing That Works. I recommend that. I recommend that book at the back because I wrote it, but because people say it's quite good. Just read a lot, anything, you know. Ideas come from various places, you know. You never know where an idea is going to come from. Unless you've got lots of places to go to, you're in real trouble. Yeah? People say creativity is the act of putting together things that may be familiar in unfamiliar ways. You know? But if you don't have a lot of stuff in the attic, yeah, you can't move it around very effectively. Yeah? So, for God's sake, read. Read good stuff, read bad stuff, read any damn thing. I like to read quotations because they're distilled wisdom. Albert Einstein said many things, one of which was, imagination is more important than knowledge. I'm going to show you lots and lots of stuff today, some of which may relate to you, much of which may not. But the principles I'm talking about apply to everything. Yeah? So you have to use your imagination. If you haven't got any imagination, you're in the wrong place. Yeah? You're in the wrong business. Actually, you're in trouble. You're in real trouble. He also said, example is not only a way to teach, it is the only way to teach. So I'm going to show you lots and lots of examples, as I said, so that you can learn lessons from them. And one of the lessons that you've got to learn is that very often quite small things make a huge difference in marketing. People will talk an awful lot of rubbish about strategy and this, that and the other. And every day I get sent something which uses some word I don't understand to explain something extremely simple. The latest one is brand activation. I like brand activation. You know. I'm going to suggest that all the big advertising agencies start departments in charge of brand activation. And if any of them can tell me what the hell they're talking about, we'll be well away. So little things often make a lot more difference than big things. So I'm going to show you some advertisements. And later on, the man who worked with me on these advertisements, who actually did most of the work, who runs an advertising agency in Warminster of all places, probably the smallest advertising agency in Britain, gets very big results. He was given this by a client to improve. And so he had a go at it. And I'm going to try and explain as I go through today, when I say something worked better than something else, I'm going to try and explain why it worked better than someone else, because it's no use me saying, whoopee, we did this, and it was fantastic, you know. So there we are. It says what it is, back pain, and that's very, very important. You must single out what the problem is. Marketing, for the most part, is just solving people's problems. It's got a picture of the thing that does it. It's got a picture of somebody using it, and it's perfectly workmanlike, and it made no money whatsoever. In fact, it lost money. And then my friend had a go at it, and he did that with it. And that did 3 times as well as the other one. And the reason it did 3 times as well, I'll try and explain to you. Number one, you can see somebody's face looking out at you. People buy from people, and people relate to people. Yeah? So me talking to you, much more effective than some statement. Yeah? Secondly, it says it's new, very, very clearly there, right at the beginning of the headline. New is one of the most powerful words in the English language. Then it says 12 minutes. We want it, and we want it fast. Yeah? And it's got a big picture there, so there's something for the eye to focus on. You know, and if you're writing copy, you shouldn't just think about the copy. You've got to think about the context of the copy. You know. You do have to have some sort of awareness of the visual impact of what you're doing. So that did 3 times as well. And then Bill Fryer, who's the guy's name, rang me up, and I happen to be the chairman of his agency. So he said, well, I've just done this. He said, do you think you could improve on it? And I said, I don't know. You're very good. And I had a look and suggested something half an hour later, which was this. You'll notice the real difference there, the words blissful relief. Yeah? And later on, James Hammond's going to talk to you about a little bit about the impact of emotion on the way people make decisions. So that was essentially very, very simple, just that change in the headline. And down here, he had mentioned that there was a dressage rider who had tried this, and also a model. And they said it was wonderful. Yeah? So I just said, tell them who the dressage rider was. Yeah? Well, that increased response by 50%. So you remember I was talking about turning your copy into a cash cow. And then he said to me, oh, that was very good. He said, have you got any other ideas? So I said, I don't know. And I went down the pub, had a couple of drinks, you know, inspiration. I said, how about trying this? There's only one difference there. Right at the top there, special offer for Daily Express readers. That doubled response. one of the things you should remember is that it is relevance, not brilliance, that tends to make the difference. Yeah? Relevance. Everyone's saying, how does that relate to me? How does that relate to my problems? How does it relate to me? I'm a Daily Express reader. Doing that is so powerful that most newspapers won't let you do it. So that double response, which I found incredible, it certainly would make a difference. So there's little examples of little things that make big differences. So let's try and look at how one goes about this sort of thing. Pardon? Yeah.
You also changed the picture from a lady to a man.
Pardon?
In the last one, you changed the picture.
Oh, you noticed. I'm glad that's just to make sure you haven't fallen asleep yet. You will, I promise you. One is a male model and the other one is a female model. That made no difference at all. Sometimes it does. For those of you who are interested, I can tell you that men look at women. Women do not look at men. Women look at women more than they look at men. But they look at babies even more than that. So this is an advertisement I wrote based upon what I'd learned from testing. Yeah? The most important thing in direct marketing is to test, see what works and what doesn't. This is an ad I wrote a long time ago, and I was actually flying from Kuala Lumpur to Canada, and I got there, and I was about to do a seminar like this, but shorter, thank God. And I was asked if I could change an advertisement we'd written which said, wanted account handlers who can see the wave of the future in advertising. So why did I say wanted? Because I know the word wanted will increase response. Why did I say account handlers who can see the wave of the future in advertising? Because that is flattery. Let's say, oh, you're smart enough. If you're smart enough. Flattery and greed are two of the prime things that make people do things, yeah? Things that make you feel good and things that make you going to get something for nothing. So I thought that was going to be all right. I'd put this picture of David there because I'd learned that putting people's faces in there increased response. I put a caption in there because when we see a picture, we want to know what the picture's all about. I put his signature in there because I know that when somebody signs something, it means they believe it. But then, when I was in Toronto, I was asked, can you change the advertisement to get us more creative people? And I said, look, I'm absolutely bloody shattered. I've been flying for 30 hours. I've got to do a seminar. I'll call you back when I've finished the seminar. And you know, your brain works in a strange way. And while I was doing the seminar, I had an idea. And I knew that when people look at advertisements, their eyes flash from the top. They go to the middle first, then they go up to the left, and they flash down to the bottom to see who signed it. Just as when you meet somebody, you want to know who they are. Yeah? And I also knew that the thing that's most remembered in a direct mail letter is the PS. So I thought, I rang up London and I said, try putting a handwritten PS at the end and put in some copy. And the copy, very, very simple copy. PS, we also need more good creative people. Write to Drayton Bird, Executive Creative Director. That's about 2 lines. It produced 16% of all the response. Yeah? And incidentally, if you're looking to hire people at any time, I also said, please send me your full CV together with a letter explaining, yeah, because I want to know the buggers could write, yeah, because most people can't. You know? So that was very, very successful. All, not based on me being clever, just based on me knowing what works and what doesn't. And that's all I can give you today, really, is telling you this is what works, and this is what doesn't work, and this is why. The first thing to realise about creative is how unimportant it is in the great scheme of things. And I think that most marketers operate on what I call the upside-down iceberg principle. You know what happens with an iceberg. You know, there's a successful iceberg, and there's an unsuccessful iceberg. If you turn an iceberg upside down, it won't work, yeah? So most people's marketing is done on the upside-down principle. And what happens is that what people love to do is piss around with the creative, yeah? You know, anybody can have an opinion. Could you make the logo a little bit bigger? Could we have that in red, please? Could you move that 2 inches to the right? Wankers, yeah? They love to do it. Yeah? They love to do it because you don't have to think to have an opinion about something you know nothing whatsoever about. Yeah? But all that's completely irrelevant if the proposition was wrong, and that's completely irrelevant if you were talking to the wrong people, and that's completely irrelevant if you were offering them the wrong thing. These are the things that matter most, yeah? Don't first look at your copy to want to find out why things are going wrong, yeah? Start by saying, is there anything we can do to improve what we offer? Yeah? Can we do any research or testing to find out why it's not working? Even the most brilliant message sent to the wrong people will never work as well as the dullest message sent to the right people. Are we targeting the right people? Have we thought of a good incentive? I can bullshit you forever, but I offer you something free, you get really interested. And then the last thing on which I spent 52 years of my life is creative. Happily, it's extremely difficult to do. Because that's why you're here, isn't it? The first thing to bear in mind is, how should I use my time? Am I using my time wisely? You know, everybody who does anything whatsoever is well aware, and it's not just about copy or anything else, that you have this appalling feeling at a certain point in time that you should have started earlier. In fact, when I sold, I had this agency that I sold to Ogilvy and Mather, and I became very friendly with the, apart from David Ogilvy, there's the man who ran it, Bill Phillips, who was very fond of quotations, and he used to say, it doesn't matter what you do, you should have started earlier. And he also said something that many of you may find appealing, I certainly do. He said, a neat stall is the sign of a dead horse, to explain why his office was in such a bloody mess. So look there, you see, the writing, the actual writing bit, yeah, is far, in fact, I'm constantly tempted to increase the number of time, percentage of the time devoted to research and reflection, and diminish the amount of time spent on writing. The best copywriter I've worked with for a while astounds me constantly because she does more research than anyone I've ever met in my life into all sorts of stuff. The more research, the more reflection you engage in, the better you will do. Because that's where it's all going to come from. I'll give you one or two examples as we go along. A research and reflection. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how people get ideas, but this is essentially this is the process, yeah? You look into anything and everything that may relate to what you're trying to sell. And then you write down any ideas you've got, no matter how stupid they may be. You never know where a good idea is going to come from. And you very often won't recognise it when it has arrived. Yeah? The next thing you do is you have to do something rather important. And it really is the difference between success and failure in many respects. And that is you have to get excited and start writing as fast as ever you can. Yeah? What you are doing when you write effective, persuasive writing, yeah, is you are transferring enthusiasm. Yeah? So if you can't get enthusiastic about it, you will never succeed. I don't claim to be a particularly brilliant writer, but I do have the ability to get excited about the most bizarre bloody things. Yeah? At the moment I'm in the middle of a nightmare project which involves selling electronic candles made in Slovenia to Italians who don't even know where bloody Slovenia is, although it's next door. But I've managed to get excited about selling electronic candles to go in churches, yeah, for people to pray to Italians. Yeah? Because I try to climb inside people's minds, you know, and think, what's going to get you excited? What is going to get you excited? I've got to get excited about what's going to get you excited, and I've got to transfer that excitement to you. So when it comes to the process of writing, you must write with fury, and then correct with care. You probably know the old story about Pascal, the French writer, who wrote to a long screed to a friend and said at the end, "I'm sorry this letter is so long. If I'd had more time, it would have been shorter." I used to write a column every week for a magazine called Marketing, full of pretentious drivel, especially my column. And I always remember one time I just finished a column and I said to my then PA, Daphne, "Okay, Daph, whiz it off to Marketing," and Daphne said, "No, I don't think so." And she'd observed me with, mingled disbelief and loathing for quite a while, and I said, what do you mean, don't send it off? She said, "It's not ready." I said, "How the bloody hell would you know whether it's ready or not?" "I wrote it." She said, "Well, I've been watching you now for 5 years. You never revise anything less than about 8 times. You've only revised that 3 times. Why don't you go home at the weekend, come back and send it?" And she was right. Yeah. The more you revise it, the better off it's likely to be. David Ogilvy, who'd worked as a chef, used to compare it to the way in which you prepare a sauce. The more you reduce it, the better it tastes. Yeah. So that's more or less the way you divide your time, although I have to say that I would say this is probably less, should be less. Yeah? That should be more. Yeah, that should be more. That's where you're going to find your material that you're going to play around with in your mind and come up with something pretty good. Yeah? I mentioned product and positioning, and positioning is incredibly important because what you're doing is you're talking to people and they've got stuff in their own heads, and in their own psyches that they have feelings about. And you have to understand how they see what it is that you're trying to sell. What position does it occupy in their mind? Never mind what it is, what do they feel it's like? What personality does it have? This is a quote. This is actually an American writer and philosopher, Henry James's brother, who I don't recommend reading Henry James, by the way, because I find I begin a sentence and by the time I get to the end I don't know what he's talking about at the beginning. But so he was talking to a carpenter, and the carpenter said there's very little difference between one man and another, but what little there is very important. When you think about it, we all look pretty much the same. We're all prey to the same emotions. We live very similar lives, particularly, say you lot, we're all quite similar in some respects, many respects. So what is it that makes us like one person and not like another? What are the small things that make a difference? Here's a commercial example. For a long time I lived on the King's Road. So here we have Picasso. You can buy coffee in Picasso. Want to get a coffee? You're walking down the King's Road. Within 200 yards there are a number of places where you can buy coffee. Coffee Republic, Café de la Paix, Le Pain Quotidien. You can buy coffee at all these places. But they all have a slightly different character. Coffee Republic had such a bad character that it went broke. Here's another example from one of the most famous advertising campaigns ever, which the proposition of which started with the facts, which was that Avis were the second largest hire car company. The leaders by 1 million miles were Hertz, but somebody did some research at Doyle, Dane and Bernbach and discovered one interesting thing about Avis. That they were the second largest. They were far, far smaller than Hertz. And then you relate to the way, how do people feel about somebody being number 2? Yeah? Are you behind somebody, the leader? Yeah? Are you working like a dog to get to the top? The whole thing based upon a position that everybody recognises. Yeah? Diesel. We are bombarded with garbage on television, posters, on the internet. Yeah? And what do we say about most of it? This is bollocks. It's bollocks. Yeah? So all of a sudden Diesel come along and they recognise that you recognise that it's bollocks, and they put up things that this is all bollocks. You know, we're the people who take the piss. And there's all these people out there saying, I like the idea of taking the piss, you know. And from that simple statement, they sort of move over to saying, would you like to buy our stuff? Which is the same as everyone else's stuff. Yeah? But it's the position that it occupies in your mind. Yeah? So you've got to find out, what position do you occupy in somebody's mind? How do they feel about you? What do they believe about you? What do they dislike about you? What do they like about you? Yeah?